Comcast. Guy in cuffs needs a cigarette cliche. Never mind the tuna, the painting, and the cat. By the end of the movie, we're all going to believe it's pretty far-fetched that these cops allowed this man to keep a can opener. Also, David Leitch, one of the John Wick creators, is a producer on this film, and if this kitty dies, I'm adding more sins to this than you've ever dreamed of CinemaSins adding to a movie. I'm not even joking. Leave this kitty alone. Monday, slurping. Bus stop with only 2 seats. Honking. Excitement. Casual spouse barrier pillow wall. Do couples in dormant marriages actually do this? Instead of just one of them sleeping somewhere else? What does this pillow even block? Not snoring or fart smells or anything.
I missed the garbage.
Despite this savage line, Becca is not the main antagonist in this movie. Whatever emotion this kind of editing is supposed to cause in me, the viewer, it's ultimately only causing nausea. Then, it's Saturday, Sunday. What? Hutch forgets to take the trash out again! That shit has got to be overflowing to the point where he is being a dick to their noses. Also, neither of them thinks to have their teenage son take out the trash the night before. I'm beginning to think their marriage problems are just as much due to incompetence as they are to a lack of passion. He sees a couple home invaders and he goes to the bag and pulls out the... Is that the 3-wood? Look, I understand thinking about going yard here. You want distance and aim isn't super important. But the problem with a wood is that it's so damn long. It's too long. You can't swing that shit in a hallway. The club to pull here is clear and obvious, and it's the putter. Massive weight on the end, but with a short shaft you can wield with control. Unless you have one of those longer belly putters, in which case, you pussy. Attention people with highly identifiable tattoos. Don't do crime, you ninnies. Well, Hutch, this is what happens when you don't take the garbage out for a month. But the real issue is that no one brings up the faulty installation of this garage door opener. As soon as the door hit the box, it should have went right back up with lights strobing like a rave.
Look, you did the right thing, Mr. Mansell.
This cop is the only reasonable adult in the entire movie, and that includes the realtor at the end. This kind of rational decision-making has no place in this film.
You know, if that was my family...
Eat a face. What cop in this moment would mock the father to his face for lack of courage? Eat a
I have to do a report on a veteran for history class. Think I could just interview you?
Yeah, I was an auditor, so...
What about your Uncle Charlie? He was a real soldier.
All soldiers are real soldiers, even medics, chaplains, and yes, even auditors. Look, I understand there are trends, but some trends are stupid. And storing your dishes and bowls out in the open like this means you have to dust them off every time you want to use one, and that's wasted effort. So, when you get arthritis in your hands, Mr. Nobody, don't come crying to me. I keep my shit in a cabinet like a normal person. Wasting perfectly good eggs. Doing this at work ever for any reason. This is actually a crime. A serious one. The work freezer is in no way a good spot to hide a gun. I know this for reasons I'm not at liberty to discuss right now. Also, still has his prints on it.
I'm thinking you did the best thing you could. I mean, you being you.
Michael Ironside exuding so much toximachismo, I don't know if I want to fight him or him.
It's a fair offer.
But not a great one, you know.
Later we find out Hutch has a bunch of gold stashed away, so what was stopping him from making a better offer? Or better yet, buying a different business, one not owned by someone he despises.
It was, empty.
I've never stared down the barrel of a gun in the middle of the night, so I'm no expert, but I still think there could have been one bullet in this gun. No one ever made a microwave as good as Panasonic. No one will be seated while we watch him visit all the tattoo parlors in the city. Remember, he left without saying a word to his family. Nothing. For all they know, he went out for milk. For the second time in this movie, a wrist tattoo will be important. We are only 22 minutes in, folks. This analog tattoo tracing works. He's pretty goddamn lucky she didn't get this tattoo hundreds of miles away in Rancho Cucamonga. Kettle whistling is a metaphor for someone getting steamed.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet, motherfucker!
The line that got my niece suspended from 3rd grade makes it into this movie. I'm not going to send the bus driver opening the door, but I am sending her belief that this group of drunk assholes would listen to instructions or cooperate in any manner. Donna put herself and her passengers in danger, and this most certainly will be a topic of discussion at her yearly review. This poster gave me a good old chuckle, but Metro Transit Suspicious is a useless URL without the .com or .org or .gov or .net or .sexy. I'll remove all the sins from this movie if a municipality changes its public transportation domain suffix to .sexy.
What are you still doing here, old man?
That's ageist. This is a pretty good fight scene, but he gets as good as he gives. Yeah, the movie will go on to say he's some kind of elite former army guy, but he honestly nearly loses this bus fight a few different times. This girl is stoned out of her mind. That is the only explanation for her staring in wonder rather than screaming in terror right now. I don't think this window was supposed to break like that. I just want to know if the stuntman is okay. Seriously, does anyone know if this guy's okay? reminding me of last summer when my pants got caught on one of the cleats of my friend's boat. I fell face first onto a boat ramp. I went to the ER and was charged $1,000 for an ice pack. The American healthcare system. When and why did this guy close his knife and put it back in his pocket? Or has he played through this quest before and he knew that a secondary weapon would be necessary if they didn't defeat Hutch in the first battle? I may not have completed medical school, but I have serious qualms about this tracheotomy. At a minimum, he didn't use the recommended local anesthetic.
We haven't had sex in months. We haven't made love in years.
Marriage. Making Connie Nielsen cry. What? Also, Yulian is a person, but the movie spends the next 3 minutes making me believe it's a place. If the driver was going to execute this risky U-turn, why not do another less risky U-turn and drop off Yulian right in front of the club? I'm done waiting for context. I'm sending this
Вот какого хера у тебя уголек в команде?
That's racist. This guy is beating a man to death, and I guess we're impressed? Seems like the film is setting this man up to be the super eccentric nightclub owner who also goes full Tasmanian devil in fights and can beat some ass as the final boss for Hutch to fight. Feels like we could have still accomplished that informational exchange with fewer minutes, but whatever. What the
How can I find this man?
Okay, but we're going fingerprints here, right? I did some Googling, and apparently some Metro cards actually are tied to personal data, which is kind of up. But still, would Russian lowlifes in the hospital know this? Or even think this? They would, because they have mafia ties. Damn it. Okay, I've already written enough here that I'm not going back, so let's give the sin to the NYC Metro cards that are actually tied to personal data, because again, that is up. Should you really go jogging the day after gluing a knife wound shut? Look at this burn-ass pancake. Hutch is a dick to breakfast. The movie really glosses over the mundanity of his job. I suppose you could argue that they're trying to show the mundanity via the rapid repetition, but it all goes by so fast that I end up feeling like his job seemed pretty cool. The barber not being the actual barber in this scene definitely subverted my expectation. But why?
Flex art to the tune of 8 or 9 figures.
8 or 9 figures? This is not even a passable knockoff of Self-Portrait with Gray Felt Hat. Don't even get me started on this Vermeer. So because he used his dad's Metro card, the bad guys are going to go after his dad. And while I'm sure that will turn out to be a hilariously bad idea for the bad guys, I'm more curious why a super old man in a nursing home even has a Metro card. And this isn't one of those temporary paper shits us tourists use. This is a credit card style Metro card with name and address attached to it. Son really his dad here.
I wouldn't worry about this Hutch guy. Your man here looks to be as vanilla as they come.
Vanilla being considered normal and boring has always confused me. For one, it's delicious. 2, it's hard to obtain. And 3, that is like $300 a pound. Meanwhile, Cinnamon over here thinks he's a big deal, but only comes in at like $12 a pound. F you, Cinnamon.
Think of it like the 401k of the Russian mob.
The barber thinks these motherfuckers would opt for a 401k over a Roth IRA.
I think if he had his way, he'd probably walk away.
Грёбаный общак.
Movie introduced me to the idea that mobsters could retire, and then goes on to describe a super confusing scheme by which they do retire, which is not a sin, until the barber says this and now I'm like, why the doesn't Yulian just retire? You know, if Moby goes deep enough into this basement, he might just find proof he dated Natalie Portman. This heavily redacted file leads me to believe that his code name is Nobody, which is only useful if the CIA is trying to be clever. Other than that, it seems like a better idea to not refer to him by a name at all.
Everybody get to the basement.
My parents used to say this every few months when I was young. I assumed it was a tornado drill, but I never understood the muffled moaning I could hear from above. It's dinner time, so even if it is this dark, there would be plenty of people coming and going and walking and bike riding through this neighborhood to see this Previously totally silent assault turns loud for one brief moment. This lasagna looks completely different and much more delicious than the lasagna Hutch was serving his family earlier. Yulian 100% definitely said he wanted Hutch alive, but all these henchmen are shooting machine guns at him like crazy during this invasion. Now that he's been captured and is in the trunk of the car, I have to wonder if he planned for this possible outcome at all. Like, he put his family in a basement, did a security code that closed and locked the basement, killed at least one dude, and is now gone. Can the family even get out of the basement on their own if they weren't aware of the security door thing? There's an alternate version of this story where the wife and kids die of starvation in the basement. I'm willing to ignore that this car has a fire extinguisher in the trunk, despite the fact that I've never seen this as standard equipment in any car. Who knows, maybe these hitmen just like to be prepared, but I am going to sin the size of this thing. There's either no way this works, or there is no way Pavel survives being folded in half like this. This only works if Hutch has super strength and Pavel can fold himself like Reed Richards, and this movie hasn't established either of those things. This guy responds to not being able to see by swerving and jamming down on the accelerator. Well, he might be out of to give, sure, but there's no way for him to have known he would survive this and he should have been killed. Also, it isn't just that he survives. It's that he will very soon go on to do some fighting and physical that should be impossible after these injuries.
I never met a black Russian before.
I never met a redhead from Iowa. Doesn't mean they don't f***ing exist? Are we really still doing the broken character looks at themselves in a broken mirror thing? Really?
I'll take the kid somewhere safe.
That's it. He's not going to give her a gun or a knife or some instructions. He was an auditor for the 3-letter organizations. Surely he has something he can give or say to her that will help them stay safe and secret. No? No? This box of gold is not centered. Hutch is a dick to tilt sensors.
I am not a jealous guy. But in that moment, I wanted what Alan had.
This is such an odd scene. Most of these people he's telling the story to are already dead, even though the movie went out of its way to show at least one of them was still alive. There's no reason for him to unload this or even say this shit out loud to anyone. He's already turned back into the killing machine and is loving it. This is worse than a villain expositing his plan before they kill the hero because he has already won this round. This would be like the villain winning, killing the hero, then standing over the dead body while the news cameras show up and roll film of the villain just explaining to the corpse how and why everything was done. Let's look at this motherfucker's entitled big as shit vinyl collection. Just look at it. No one who has this many vinyl records deserves any pity whatsoever. He's doing just fine. His wife wondered earlier if they could afford a trip to Italy, but never once mentioned how they afforded this hoarder's wall of records. There are so many goddamn records on these shelves. He absolutely has to have either doubles or like Evie and Bruce Willis's The Return of Bruno. God damn. I went back and rewatched the scene several times looking for a moment when he might have dumped alcohol on the record, but there is no explanation at all for why the record player's needle starts a catastrophic fire. And I don't really care that much, but I care enough, you know. They slept through loads of machine gunning at dinner time, but a fire late at night wakes up all the neighbors. As What a Wonderful World plays and these guys slow-mo walk down the hall, I have to ask, is this movie using old music like this and I Gotta Be Me for a reason? Or just because the old stuff is cheaper? And why do 2 fucking lame Russian henchmen warn a slow-mo hallway walk? This nurse 100% would have seen and heard this assassin being subdued, but whatever. Hutch puts up a printed sign about the building being closed so he can make weapons and everyone goes for it. As we watch him, Home Alone, MacGyver, equalizing booby traps and bombs, and left to ask, what about this film is truly original? The kitty cat bracelet? I have seen this movie a dozen times, man. I get using nails and screws, but a fucking slide latch? Now we have someone singing The Impossible Dream. This movie officially has gone too far into the retro music during modern action realm. This movie spent a long time building up to this climax, only to then sadly rush the climax to the point of anticlimacticism. Okay, gas in the water supply of this building is sinister, but this is at most 5 gallons of gas. Even assuming that Hutch managed to remove all the water from the sprinkler system, this is still going to be dispersed over a large area. And this building has been shown to be huge. Can a single can of gas pollute the water lines of a building this big enough to cause an explosion? I don't f***ing know. Ask Vsauce that shit. I just count sins, and this is worth 10. Hutch managed to get seated, order a steak, and finish most of said steak before Yulian even spotted him? This movie asks more of my suspension of disbelief than f***ing Warriors of Virtue. What is preventing these guys from shooting Hutch in the back as soon as he's outside? I had a dog once that leaned out the passenger window this far, and he fell out and needed stitches. Granted, he was a stupid-ass bull mastiff, but my point is that this guy should face some consequences for this bullshit. Holy Harry from the radio, and the phone shows up at the end ex machina.
You brought a lot of shotguns.
You brought a lot of Russians.
I realize it's long and in 2 different voices, but goddamn, you brought a lot of shotguns, you brought a lot of Russians would make a fantastic band name, or album name. Hutch puts a lot of faith in these guys stepping on this tiny button. I, on the other hand, would survive this because I, as my college girlfriend will attest, am terrible at hitting the right spot. 3 with 1 shot! Mathematically less likely than this shooter winning the Powerball twice in his lifetime. Man, this movie is on the easy setting. Makeshift rebar cannons work perfectly on the first try. Movie has time for yet another slow-motion action scene set to an old-timey Your Grandpa Loved It song. This is getting repetitive.
Dad, you out? Yeah.
The bad guy can hear this. He survives the run-up because no one ever shoots the legs, feet, tires, but then the claymore goes off and he gets bounced back like it was a large consumer fireworks product. Okay, sure, he's bringing home a kitten for his daughter, but let's be honest here, people. He's bringing home a Siamese kitten, which means this cat will defy any and all human commands, chew everything, and generally act like a completely feral cat. Siamese cats are beautiful, but they are notoriously naughty.
Me, I'm nobody.
I'm not going to roll credits. I'm not even going to sin the movie for missing this perfect opportunity to actually roll the credits. However, I'm going to sin this movie for going on an additional 2 minutes for the sole purpose of introducing us to a kitchen. Does f***ing every f***ing movie f***ing have to f***ing have mid-credit and f***ing end credit scenes these days, or f***ing what?